JK's at his best.
Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga getting himself out in transition. Really the lone bright spot on the night for Kuminga, but it didn't matter. Warriors get blown out by the Hawks. Kuminga's Atlanta teammates doing the deal against the shorthanded Golden State. So the Hawks stay hot, and the Warriors lose again, 126 to 110, the final in Atlanta. We welcome you in to Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number, 415-808-5627. It's a Saturday night. We got a lot of college basketball action going. We're keeping tabs on everything that's going on throughout the NBA as well. The Warriors now 1-4 on this 6-game road trip with the finale of the road trip to be played in Dallas on Monday. So we'll see if the Warriors can get off the schneid there. Golden State, again, similar to the game last night, able to hang around for a stretch, but the third quarter ends up doing the Warriors in as Atlanta outscores the Warriors 39-20 in the third quarter, and it was the 25-5, 27-5 really run at the beginning of the third quarter. And I thought the Warriors actually lost this game even before that. Toward the end of the second quarter, after the Warriors had played pretty well to build an 8-point lead in that second quarter. Another one of these nights where the Warriors came out, they were moving the ball and they were hitting some shots early. And again, 36-35 after one, kind of impressively, despite the fact that the Hawks are playing very well of late. They didn't have their best player in Jalen Johnson tonight, but again, ramped up the defense. They got some big-time contributions from Dyson Daniels and Mohamed Gay as well. And the Warriors just overmatched by a team that's played quality basketball here during the post-All-Star break portion of their schedule. And they're a team that's trying to avoid the play-in tournament themselves in the Eastern Conference and sneak into the top six and see if they can make a little bit of noise. They got a lot of really good young players on that team that complement each other pretty well. And Quinn Snyder doing a nice job for Atlanta here to kind of get this team in the post-Trae Young era on track. And really what allowed for Atlanta to move on from Trae Young was the fact that a lot of these guys were starting to play. Even before the Kuminga Porzingis trade, a lot of these young guys were playing well without Trae Young, to the point where it was like, hey, you know what? This team might be better without him. Let's build this thing around Daniels and Jalen Johnson and some of these other guys. And so that's exactly what they ultimately decided to do in moving Trae to Washington. So ugly night for the Warriors, ugly second half. Ugly, really, I think, from the final, 4 or 5 minutes of the second quarter. It's interesting for all of the hype and pomp and circumstance relating to Jonathan Kuminga and this kind of being the Kuminga revenge game. He was probably the worst player on the floor tonight for Atlanta. Richache ended up, I think, with the worst plus minus, and Kuminga was kind of right there with Landale and others, but he ends up 1 for 9, shooting middies and threes, and basically the worst of the worst. Nate Williams kind of giving him the business in terms of just kind of muscling up against him. Draymond had a big stop against him, and so it ends up being 2 points on 1 of 9 shooting, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a couple of turnovers for Kuminga in the 22 minutes. But you look up, it ends up a -6, and so the Hawks a plus 22 when Kuminga was not on the floor. And actually, it was the stretch that Kuminga was on the floor in the first half was where the Warriors really played their best basketball in jumping out to that 8-point lead. And then immediately following Kuminga going back to the bench there to kind of close out the final 4 or 5 minutes of the second quarter, that's when the game flipped. He played a 12-minute stretch in the first quarter, bridging the first and second quarters. 0 for 4, 3 boards, 1 assist, couple turnovers, had a steal. Atlanta immediately, when JK went out of the game, went on an 11-2 run. At that point, it ended up being a 19-9 run overall to close the half after Kuminga was out, and the Hawks went from 8 down at that point to 2 ahead. And then they come out in the time at which Kuminga was not on the court in the third quarter, and they blow the doors right off of the Warriors, 27-5, open up that big time 90-66 lead, which would wind up being the largest of the night at that point. But then Atlanta from that point on would push it up to 28. The Warriors with some garbage time minutes to cut it and make it cosmetically look a little better than it actually turned out to be. And they wind up winning this thing 126 to 110. So 808 KMBR 415-808-5627 to jump in and join the conversation. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open as well. As the Warriors get outclassed in the ATL 126 to 110. It is Dubs OT with JD. We'll get into a bunch of other stuff here coming up as well. We've got the Steph Curry and Moses Moody updates as far as their reevaluations and injury updates, which dropped mid-afternoon after we got done right around noon with, or right around 11, I guess, with just Dubs earlier this morning. I think it dropped in the early 2 o'clock hour with the game tonight at 5. So we'll give you the latest on what's going on with Steph. I think a return sooner than later is on the table, maybe even as soon as one more game without, if all can go well for Stephen Curry tomorrow. And then Moses Moody, it sounds like, has the potential to return here within the next week. We'll get into the Giannis reporting from Ramona Shelburne of ESPN as well. Also take a look at some of the other scores of note around the league, give you a little bit of a standings update. And, of course, Kyle Haar, before we get to the phones, we have to get back to our Tankathon update. We didn't do a Tankathon last night. Does that mean we have to do 2 tonight?
And we didn't do one during just Dubs.
Yeah, does that mean we need to do 3 Tankathon updates? Because tonight, as ugly as this game wound up, and of course the Warriors now becoming more and more entrenched in the 10 seed in the Western Conference play-in, and more entrenched in that 11th pick lottery odds slot. We'll have to see how many Tankathons we do. We have still yet to. I've seen them floating around the internet, the Tankathons where the Warriors wind up with the number 1 pick or a top 4 pick, but it has not yet happened. I think in 4 or 5 attempts on Dubs OT or just Dubs to this point in time. So let's jump in. We got the best YouTube chat in sports. So we'll get to the chats coming up here in a moment, but we do want to get to the phone lines. We do have a couple of lines open as well at 415-808-5627 as the Warriors take another one on the chin. Kind of an expected result given how shorthanded the Warriors have been and how well the Hawks have been playing. But nevertheless, I mean, just it has been a demoralizing last couple of weeks here as the Warriors have had to continue to play here. Now we're getting close to basically 2 months without not only Jimmy, but also Steph Curry. And you look up now here in the NBA standings and Golden State, like I said, firmly entrenched in 10th. They're now 5 under 500. So they are 33 and 38 on the year, 11 games to go for Golden State, and one more on this road trip in Dallas coming up on Monday night. All right, let's get to the phone lines. We'll get it started here with Adam in San Jose. Up first, Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. What's going on tonight, Adam?
Good evening, JD. Just such a disappointment once again. I mean, I just don't understand how entering this season, we all believed we had a contending roster. We were so excited about guys like Pods and Seth, Kuminga, Melton, Quentin Post. I get this is not the same team as we had at the beginning of the season, but we weren't doing much better with Steph and Jimmy earlier in the season. Obviously, we would definitely be above where we are now, but I don't see us being beyond the play-in even with them. And then there's a famous saying that goes, they say the best ability is availability. I think Steph needs to figure out how he can play more than 50 to 55 games a season, similar to KD Draymond, his own teammate, and for the most part, LeBron James. They seem to they're right there up there in age with like Steph, but they have seemed to be able to figure out how to be available for more games in the season. And Steph, it seems like every year it's the same issues with him. He misses a big chunk of games. 50 to 55 is his limit. The team relies on him. Without him, it's nothing. So he's got to figure that out. He needs to rest for the rest of the season and make a run next year for the final time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen. He's going to be coming back here, Adam, at some point, maybe even as soon as Wednesday. So he's going to play, I think, in some of these games here. We'll see if he can stay healthy in the final 10. And I know they probably won't play him in back-to-backs, but I don't necessarily disagree with the greater point in terms of, them needing him to be more available than he's been this year. And look, it's 39 games for Steph this year. Now, he did play 70 last year. He did play 74 2 years ago. And then you go back, it was 56 in the 22-23 season. It was 64 and 63 in 22 and 21. 21 was a shorter season, so it was a higher percentage. It was closer to maybe a 70 if you average it out or stretch out the average over 82, because that was only a 72 game season. But thank you for the call. Look, as far as like the disappointment for what this team is, right, and what we believe they could be, I'll even give you the benefit of the doubt on, where the Warriors were in the first 2 months of the season. I mean, they were 2 games under 500 and just kind of slogging their way through. It's funny. I was talking to somebody about this during the week as this kind of miserable road trip off the air. I was talking to somebody as this miserable road trip was kind of continuing on, and I'm just, they're probably not going to win very many games or any of the remaining games on this trip. And then Steph's going to come back at some point. We'll see what they can do. But this has truly been like the first week of the season. There was a little juice, right, when Kuminga was playing a little bit better, and Horford had the game against Denver. If you recall, and they got off to whatever it was, the 2-1, 3-1 start, whatever it was, maybe it was even 4-1, if I remember correctly. And everybody's feeling good the first week, and then basically for almost 2 full months, minus about a week, the Warriors were blah. I mean, they were like 5 under, for like 2 months, and disappointing, and hanging around the bottom, hanging around the play-in. And then all of a sudden it becomes, all right, it has to be go time, because you don't want things to get too far away to where, you wind up basically stuck completely in the play-in. And then they go on the 12-4, and Kerr figures out the rotation, and Jimmy's playing well, and Horford's playing better, and Steph's doing his thing. And they go on that 12. But other than really the first 5 games of the year, and that 12-4 run with Jimmy, the rest of this season, even the parts before these last 20 or 21 games, which of course you know what time it is without Steph and without Jimmy, were underwhelming. And I don't think that should be lost on the Warriors as they look to evaluate the things that need to be better, because I do think there's a tendency, if you're the Warriors, to kind of look at the way this thing all shakes out and go, yeah, well, it's the injuries. Yeah, well, got screwed. Steph got hurt, and Jimmy was out for the year, and it was injuries. But that 12-4, man, that 12-4, we were cooking. Those first 5 games when it looked like Kuminga might actually accept a lesser role and play hard for us. That was the exception and not the rule. And I think the Warriors cannot be content on having a team next year that basically is going to be a different version of what this team had been, up until the point where they had got hot. And I'm looking at the standings right now again as the Lakers pull off another win. The Lakers are third in the West now at 46-25. They've jumped Houston, Denver, and Minnesota all here in the last basically 2 weeks, as they've won now 9 consecutive games. But you look at it, and the Warriors, they were not going to get. I look at where Minnesota is. Minnesota's 43-28. The Warriors were not going to get to were the Warriors going to get to 15 over? They were about 6-0. Like maybe like the Warriors were kind of headed toward in between where Minnesota is and where Phoenix is right now. If they had continued on the trajectory that they were on, and look, even if they had continued on the trajectory that they were on, Steph was still going to have to miss some time. Jimmy was still at some point going to have to miss some time. And it was going to be, unsustainable to continue at the 12 out of 16 for much longer after they were, whatever they were, 18 and 20, I think they were. And then they were able to get on that run. So they have to build a team next year that has some more sustainability. What's the magic number for Steph? Well, newsflash, he's 38. Like, newsflash, Steph's 38. So, you can do all that you need to do to try to get him to be out there on the court. He's still 38, and things are going to pop up, even if they aren't the season-ending variety like Jimmy Butler. So part of it is being married to these older players, but this is the bed that the Warriors have found themselves in, and now they have to kind of deal with it at this point. So to me, it comes back to the conversation that we have nightly, which is you got to get a third best player on this team in addition to kind of keeping all the role players. And as far as like the disappointment in, we were so high on Pods, we were so high on Melton and Horford and all these role players. They're role players. They're all role players. Pods at his best is built to be a 7th or 8th man on a team that has Steph and Jimmy and Porzingis and Horford and Melton and others, all ahead of them. So, again, tonight, as we've said often, and I haven't really said it a lot this week, but I do think we have to remember that this Warriors team that currently is being put on the court on a night in, night out basis would be the worst team in the NBA. They are a complete group of complementary players. Like there isn't a star, a future star, a potential star, a might-be star. Hell, they might not even have guys that are like on the next level below star. They might be like 2 cuts below star. But that's what this thing was not built for. God, and I get it. The frustration mounts because you're thinking, God, can somebody step up and somebody look like they can be a dude with Steph and Jimmy out? And the answer is no, because none of these guys are good enough. It's just reality. And again, at the same time, as much as we're all calling it like it is, it's also not necessarily something that, you blame the individual players for. Because these guys they don't have it. They're all role players. And, you can compete and grind on a lot of nights when teams don't take you seriously and hang in some games. It's the nature of the NBA, right? Other team doesn't play hard half the time anyway. So if you play hard, even though you stink, you might look competitive half the time. And that's basically what we've seen. We've seen the Warriors be competitive half to 2/3 of the time, but then win like 20% of the time. I mean, that's what a team that wins like 18 games does, over an 82-game season. So, again, I understand the frustration. Tonight's a night if you want to vent. But, again, it's like I say every night, you have to be careful how what this looks like skews your opinion of what needs to be done in the longer term to help this team, get back to trying to be playoff level, top 6 in the West, I would say, level of contention. All right, let's get it going in the YouTube chat. 808 KMBR if you want to jump in on the phone lines, 415-808-5627. As we roll here on Dubs OT with JD. We'll keep it going till basically straight up 9 o'clock. It's a Saturday. People have got stuff they got to do. We've been going hard all week here with the 8 games in 13 days. And obviously I've been spending a bunch of days, majority of my days during the week with Greg Silver, sitting in for Greg Papa. So this is the close of the 13 days in a row for your boy here. We'll get a brief little off day tomorrow before we go back to having some double days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the Giants and everything else starting here coming up, in addition to, of course, the best Dubs coverage in the Bay. But this is it's tough, and tonight in some ways feels like a little bit of a different rock bottom, right? Like you go to Atlanta, you're thinking, oh, what's Kuminga going to do? Is he going to be the guy that embarrasses you? And he winds up not only not being the guy that embarrasses you, but is probably the worst player on the floor for the Hawks. And it doesn't even matter. Hawks are still up 28 because they've just got they got 4, 5, 6 guys that are better than Kuminga, at least. I think when you look up and down their roster, at least they were tonight. And so it definitely can be demoralizing when you look at the Warriors and they give up a guy like Kuminga, and everybody around here is like, oh my God, they gave up Kuminga. Kuminga is like one of the most potential, high-end talents the Warriors have had here in the last 5 years. And then you look at the Hawks and you're like, damn, Daniels is better than Kuminga. Jalen Johnson ain't even playing. He's better than Kuminga. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's a better player than Kuminga. Risha Shea's a better player than Kuminga. Tonight, Gay was a better player than Kuminga. Although not necessarily most nights. McCollum's obviously still, even at his age, different positions. He's a better player than Kuminga. Kuminga's like their 6th or 7th best player, maybe 7th best. I mean, they have Daniels, Johnson, Nickeil, McCollum. I mean, am I forgetting somebody? Risha Shea? I mean, Kuminga's at least like their 6th best player.
Okongwu?
Okongwu on a lot of nights. I mean, there's a reason he's coming off the bench and didn't even start tonight, by the way, when Jalen Johnson's out, their best player. So, again, not saying that as a knock on JK. It's more just, hey, the Hawks have some young talent. I think, it's sort of been weirdly skewed as if Kuminga's going to Atlanta to, like, be their 2nd best player. He might not be in their top 5 or 6. In terms of best players, and he sure as heck wasn't tonight, although he has had better days in 4 of the 7 games that he's played with Atlanta. All right, Max Lopez gets going. If you're still expecting a product better than tonight from the Warriors, what the hell have you been watching for the last 6 weeks? Yeah, good one there to start off, Max. We'll keep it short and sweet and get to a couple of others here before we take our first time out. Greg, this team has given up. I thought there was a little give up in the third quarter tonight. I don't think they've given up for the most part over the course of this stretch, as brutal as it's been. But I sensed a little frustration and give up and guys kind of looking at each other a little bit different in that third quarter. The body language was really bad in that third quarter. I thought the Warriors were here to compete tonight. I thought they were second of the back-to-back, and I don't know if the guys who played last night, maybe there was a run out of gas component. I did think they looked in the third quarter as if they had given up. Now, it didn't look that way in the first 2 quarters, so I think you also have to account for that, and it hasn't looked that way, I would say, for the most part in a lot of these games. But you know what? That's all the more reason, Greg, by the way, for those of you that are saying just shut Steph down and don't bring him back and call it off and forget about it. For everybody who's saying that, if you think this team's given up, well, you know what? You got to give them a reason to not give up. Because there's still 11 games to go plus whatever in the play-in, and the reason to force them to not give up is you bring Steph back. I mean, that's another reason to the point. Because here's the thing: do you want your culture to potentially erode because you limp to a 2-9 finish without Steph here and wind up winning like 35, 36 games? Easy to give up when the top 3 players are old and making the most money. I would give up too. Again, I think the give up is in some of these individual games and moments. I don't think there's been really an overall give up for the Warriors for the most part. All right, let's do a couple of more here. Frank Kim, 253. I mean, why don't we just say it and say this was peak JK? Looked lost out there. He started off well with the Hawks, but we can all see the inconsistency is still there. Yeah, he looks like the same guy, only with a little bit of a higher motor. Honestly, he looks like the same guy with a higher motor because he has to have a higher motor, because if he doesn't have a high motor with the Hawks, then it's going to be two teams that he didn't have a high motor with. And all of a sudden, the rest of the league is going to start to say, wait a minute, that's more about the player. And I guess maybe it wasn't Steve Kerr. It wasn't Golden State. It wasn't the environment. It wasn't everybody not coddling him or gifting him minutes, which, by the way, the Hawks have not necessarily done to this point. He's basically playing like 20 minutes a game, 20 to 23 minutes a game. But yeah, he's played 7 games with the Hawks out of, I had it in my notes here. Let me scroll down. He's played 7 games out of a potential 18 for the Hawks, and he's had 4 good games out of the 7. So he's had 4 good games. He's had 3 bad games, and then do the math, 11 games where he hasn't played. So he's had 4 bad games, 3 good games, and 11 games where he hasn't played. So he either hasn't played or he's had a bad game in 14 out of the 18 games that he's been with Atlanta. So, miss me with the notion that this has been some steal for the Hawks and he's like helping, you get on social media, these nights where he's played well, and you'd think he's their second best player in this 11-game winning streak or 13 out of 15 or whatever the heck it is. Like, you'd think he's played all 15 games and he's riding with Jalen Johnson, scored 25 a night, and they're a 1-2 punch that looks like, it's going to be the second coming of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. That hasn't been the freaking case. But yeah, to that point, I mean, look, he's had some good games. He's had some bad games. I think he's forced right now to play harder than he has in the past. I thought tonight, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I thought tonight he was a joke. He's taking middies. He's taking threes. Like that in the 4 games that Kuminga's played well, he is, that is not how it had looked. Tonight it looked more like the Hawks were doing what Kuminga wanted, right? Get him the ball where he can shoot his little jumpers and, that whole thing. I also think Kuminga loses his motivation to attack when he's less than 100%. And I wonder if he's now coming back and they've basically been load managing him and not playing him in back-to-backs. And they got cute last night and didn't play him in Houston because they wanted to try to, get him 30 tonight and embarrass the Warriors. Didn't quite work out. But for the most part, he's been, I think he's been, even with the Warriors, reluctant to attack. And also, the attack wasn't there tonight. It was, I want to shoot this little soft, weak-ass jumper that I can't hit from 15 feet. While I yell Kobe and it barely hits the front of the rim. Get out of here. Again, but in the games where Kuminga played well, it was more of the Sean Marion and the Aaron Gordon. Stop me if you've heard this one before. It's all dunks and layups at the rim and getting to the free throw line. I actually think he's less than 100, and when he's less than 100, he loses he doesn't have the explosiveness to finish in the ways that he wants to. And so he looks to try to settle for more of the jumpers, and he thinks he can be a capable player as a jump shooter. And the bottom line is he stinks when he shoots jumpers. He does. Without the rest of it, he can be a streaky corner 3 shooter. We've seen that, and he had shot the 3 well from the corner with Atlanta to this point. But yeah, he's played 18 games. He's had 4 that have been awesome. It feels a lot like this time with the Warriors, right? He'd have 4 games that were awesome, 3 games that were bad, and 11 games where he wouldn't play. And all you'd hear is everybody talking about the 4 games where he was awesome. It feels like it's almost been the exact same thing in Atlanta, with a lot of these people trying to shove it back in the Warriors' face. This is the worst trade in NBA history for Golden State. So anyway, I digress. 808 KMBR, 415-808-5627. You're listening to KMBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM, San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. It's Dubs OT with JD. The Warriors get destroyed in Atlanta in the second half, final of 126-110. Let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll get to the chat. Do have a phone line open if you want to jump in and grab it at 415-808-5627 as Dubs OT rolls on right here on a Saturday night on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
And then they get New Orleans pick this year?
Bro, so this contingent to our left is the Warriors knocked down a three.
They want
was
Buddy
chanting
Hield in the game.
They were chanting Buddy Hield, and Buddy Hield faked him out. He got up, started running, sat back down, and then he came back. I was going to say, he just wanted to think about it and then actually go.
And Richard knocked it away, and your 7 was fouled.
And he's a fan favorite wherever he goes.
Yeah, everybody forgot about Buddy Hield. It was the Jonathan Kuminga revenge game, and it was Buddy Hield who was getting the hugs and the handshakes, at least pregame, although I did see on social media from the reporters on hand in Atlanta. A lot of love for Jonathan Kuminga postgame, a lot of teammates, good conversation with Steph as well there on the court before heading to the locker rooms. Hawks get the win over the Warriors, 126-110 is the final. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD on this Saturday night, keeping tabs on Vandy and Nebraska as they come down the stretch here in the NCAA tournament. Also High Point and Arkansas. High Point looking to pull off another potential upset here in the tournament. Also keeping tabs on everything going on. Lighter night in the NBA. As well, actually pretty busy night in the NBA overall as you look at the Warriors taking the L tonight, Lakers winning tonight in Orlando. We'll get you a full scoreboard rundown, but 10-game night in the NBA with one game just finishing, the Clippers polishing off an OT win at Dallas, 138-131. So the Clippers moving back up in the Western Conference play-in standings, Milwaukee and Phoenix going at it down in the Valley as well. So we'll get to that coming up a little bit later. All right. We'll also have our Steph Curry update. Well, let's go ahead and do that now, and then we'll get back into the YouTube chat. 808 KMBR 415-808-5627. The number, if you want to jump in on the phone lines. Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open. We'll get to the text line coming up here in just a second. But let's get to the Steph Curry update. Warriors did release it this afternoon. It was, right around, when was it? It was about 2:15 Pacific time. Curry reevaluated today, and the line that the Warriors always love to put in these press releases, continues to make good progress. But here's the meat and potatoes. Curry has intensified his individual on-court workouts, which, of course, we've seen and on the trip around the team here at some of the shoot-arounds that the Warriors have had. So intensifying that. As next steps, he will be incorporated into live action and team practices in the coming days. He will be reevaluated again after the team returns home next week. So that's basically Tuesday is the next reevaluation point. Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, although the Warriors are playing Wednesday against Brooklyn in the return to play after this road trip. So Tuesday at 5 o'clock Pacific, you have to put out an injury report for your game on Wednesday. So we're going to get an update on Steph, at least as it relates to whether or not he can play in the game on Wednesday night by Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. My first thought in looking at where things sit with Steph and going through the reevaluation, my first thought was, and I put this out on social media in the afternoon, saying that he will be incorporated into live action and team practices in the coming days and then be reevaluated. To me, that was a tell that the Warriors want him to get a practice or at least some 5-on-5 full contact at some point before they're actually going to give it a go if he comes out of that feeling pretty good. And I was sort of looking at the schedule and thinking, well, when would they have the ability to do that? Because typically there is never a practice ever after a back-to-back. Teams do not practice at all after back-to-backs. So, there would not be a practice per se tomorrow, but it sounds like the Warriors and had been reported that the Warriors are, and Steve Kerr said it, we'll play the clip for you coming up at 8:30, but the Warriors are going to try to get Steph some 5-on-5 tomorrow in Atlanta before they go to Dallas. So back to the hotel tonight, hang out in Atlanta, fly to Dallas tomorrow, but before they go to Dallas, they'll have the ability, and that's a later game in Dallas, 6:30 Pacific time tip-off on Monday night, so 8:30 Central time. But so they're going to try to get Steph to play some 5-on-5 tomorrow. So that could act in lieu of an official formal team practice to be able to go through some contact. Now, maybe it winds up only being 3-on-3 if they don't have enough bodies. And then that would leave the thought that you'd want to maybe get him a little 5-on-5 at some point before he's going to play. You don't typically practice off of 6-game road trips either. So I wouldn't think that the Warriors are going to be having some formal practice on Tuesday. And I kind of said, hey, I think, if you really want to get Steph some practice time, it might be like Thursday after the Wednesday game. It might be like Thursday, Saturday, or even after you go to Denver. Warriors come home and play Brooklyn and then go to then they play Washington, and then they go a week from tomorrow. They play in Denver, and then you come back. And we've kind of been looking at that April 1st, 7 games to go. 5-game homestand begins on the 1st. So I was thinking still at that point that it was lining up for Steph to potentially return closer to maybe the 1st than the 25th. But I think if they're getting him into action tomorrow and they can get him into a little bit of action on Tuesday, I definitely don't think Wednesday is off the table for a Stephen Curry return. If they can get him into some 3-on-3 and maybe some 5-on-5 once they get home on Tuesday and then put out. Now, typically the Warriors will do that. And whenever a guy's like a game away, they wait one more game, right? They kind of give him one more game. So I would think Friday is also going to be, and what a finish, by the way, Nebraska and Vanderbilt. I don't know if you've seen this shot yet that's coming, but holy moly, did Vanderbilt almost pull off one of the miracles of all time. Holy moly. From beyond half court, the kid from Vandy, I mean, it banked in and out. Would have won the game with 2 seconds left. They threw it into him. He took a couple of dribbles and heaved it from looked like about 10 feet beyond half court. And it was dead on line off the backboard and rimmed in and out. Nebraska advances to the Sweet 16 after not having ever won a tournament game. What a finish. That would have been one of the greatest finishes in college basketball tournament history. Had that shot gone in for the youngster from Vanderbilt. I mean, it was dead on from beyond half court. I mean, straight on, off glass, in. I mean, it was halfway down and popped out off the board, and Nebraska survives and advances. So again, going back to Steph and High Point in Arkansas coming down the stretch as well with some quality. Feels like all the great games are in the evening. Once you get into like the second, once you get into
either like the first game or the late games,
Yeah, it always feels like it's like the first couple games of the late games. And so that would have been an all-timer for Vandy. All right, 808 KMBR. So I think it feels like Wednesday could still be a little rushed, but I think Friday's on the table, and I think even Friday in Denver. Friday playing him Friday, then going to Denver and playing. There's a day off in between, game off in between, day off in between, not a game off in between. And then you get a couple of days off to kind of reevaluate. So if I had to bet right now, Kyle, I would say that Steph's coming back before the 1st of April. I've been kind of almost for sure thinking it's going to be the 1st, but I think Wednesday's in play. I think Friday is in play, even if maybe Wednesday winds up being a little bit too soon. And so that would give Steph 9-10 games here to close out the season. Obviously some back-to-backs mixed in there, so he won't play in all of those. All right, let's get back to the YouTube chat. We'll get you the Moody update coming up as well in just a moment, and then our sounds at Dubs OT. No cap, again, I just didn't believe Steph is playing again this season. I saw Slater reporting today, but they shut him down weeks ago. So sticking to my predictions. Okay. I didn't believe Steph is playing again. All right, we'll see. I think he's coming back. No cap. He's going to have to prove he can be healthy. If this runner's knee thing pops up again at any point, I think that's a wrap. Like if he plays like 3 games and all of a sudden his knees are sore, then he's done. And I think they're going to ride it out and get wiped out in the first play-in game and call it a season at that point. But they're at least giving him a chance to try to do something. Appreciate you, No Cap. Let's move on. Jill Can. A pattern has developed. Start off competitive, then run out of gas, or the opponent turns it up and overruns them. Yes, that has been the pattern throughout the course of this week. Off to the great start in New York. Knicks run them down. Better team. Can't fit. I mean, that's what happens with under-talented teams. Some nights you're just completely and utterly overmatched. And then other nights you start out playing well. Maybe the other team isn't quite into the game, and then they wake up, and all of a sudden they put the screws to you, and you can't recover. And so, yeah, I think that is the pattern from this week. Even the Washington game, the Warriors, get off to a good start. They were kind of fighting for their life there at at different stretches of the Washington game. Had Porzingis not kind of put him on his back there at the end to go for the 30 points and finish the deal. And then, yeah, Boston, they were less competitive. I think that was more in the, hey, they were just overmatched category. And then last night in Detroit, the Warriors were competing for what, about a quarter and a few minutes into the second. And then they get wiped out deeper into the second quarter tonight. And then they get wiped out. But yeah, it's talent. I think, again, some of it is teams just not necessarily given a rip, as you look at the rosters coming in. I mean, look, the Hawks have won 12 of 14 coming in. They just had their 11-game winning streak stopped last night in Houston. I mean, the Hawks are probably thinking tonight they could roll the balls out and just smoke the Warriors and feed JK and try to get him 30 and, continue the misconception that he's just, owned the league since he's been a Hawk. I think that was the goal tonight, and the Warriors weren't having any of that. But when the Hawks really put the clamp down, it wasn't going to matter because the Warriors were, overmatched from a talent standpoint with the Hawks having a lot of really good young players that ultimately take the game over. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Biggest loser is the Warriors scouting department. 3 lottery picks down the drain. Yeah, no doubt. And again, that is the truest example of why the 2 timelines failed. It was they picked the wrong guys. Let's just be honest. They picked the wrong guys. Wiseman was a major whiff. Kuminga was the wrong guy. Should have been Wagner. Again, you can make the case that, hindsight, although I would have picked Wiseman with the 2 pick. Again, my preferred option going back 6 years now was the trade down option with Halliburton. Maybe you take him at 4 or 5 and you get a Wendell Carter. That's what, but if you're telling me I had to make a pick, I would have picked Wiseman. So you can count me in that. But yeah, Kuminga should not have been picked. Wagner should have been. Moody should not have been picked. Trey Murphy or Şengün should have been. And again, maybe if you take somebody other than Wiseman, then maybe you're more apt to take Şengün. If you do the trade for Halliburton, you trade back and draft Halliburton in the, somewhere between, 4 and 8, and you bring him into the mix, then you're more apt to take a more skilled big man in Şengün the next time. And then you end up getting your wing in Trey Murphy, who's a better shooter than Moody, and he's got better size. He's got better size and defensive prowess even than Kuminga, although not the athlete necessarily that Kuminga is, but the much more exceptional shooter and a much better, better longer body in terms of wingspan and all of that. Chris Cash, 707. No team in the NBA is going to win when the 5th best player has to be the best player. It's nobody's fault, not Kerr, not Pods. Wish fans would fall in love with the grind of the NBA. Well, nobody's fallen in love with this, but you're not wrong, Chris. You are 100% correct. Anytime you have to ask the 5th best player, maybe the 7th best player to be the best player, And that's also been part of it too. Not to make excuses, Kyle, but think about just how far off the rails this has gone beyond Steph and Jimmy. It was Steph and it was Jimmy, and then it became Horford, and then it became Moody, and then and then it was Draymond from time to time, and then Porzingis was in it. Like losing Moody was a big deal. Losing Horford, like when you lose Moody and Horford were probably their, I don't know, second and third, first and third best players throughout this stretch, along with Melton and Gee. I mean, they're four best players most consistently, I think, in any order during the non-Steph. If you had to say, all right, JD, who are the five best players the Warriors have had in the non-Steph, non-Jimmy Butler universe, you'd have to say Al. Again, no particular order. You have to say Al. You'd have to say Melton. You'd have to say Gee. You'd have to say Pods, I think. And then who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting. Moody for sure. Yeah, Moody for sure. So Moody and Pods. Pods probably fifth, but it was Moody. I mean, that's been and now you're taking Moody away, you're taking Horford away, you're taking Melton away in back-to-backs. Although you didn't have to take Melton away tonight in the back-to-back because he played in a back-to-back for the first time this season. I was surprised. He did score 20 points. He was also a minus 17, but for him to be able to play 22 minutes and score 20 points in the second of a back-to-back and prove that that's a box that can be checked for him, that's something that I do think increases his value not only to the Warriors for next year, but also to other teams that may have interest in looking to pay him for next year as well. And so again, he is a younger player. And so I think if he feels good and he feels like everything's been done to set him up to this point to be able to play, then you let him play and you see how it goes. And so I think, tonight was a big night for Melton. I think just in his own personal journey back from having so many injuries, because this is as productive, consistently as Melton has been in maybe 4 years, honestly, throughout his, 3-4 years throughout his entire NBA career. But Kerr has nothing to do with this dude, has G League players on his team. He's no magician. And again, at times you could even make the case that he's allowed for this team to remain surprisingly competitive to a greater extent than anybody would have, potentially imagined at this point. So let's get a couple of more here. We'll take another timeout. Pods shouldn't be starting at his best off the bench as a role player with limited minutes. Again, it's probably like 25 for Pods, Rockin', and I appreciate you chiming in. But again, like, are we really going to play this game where you're depleted by so many and it's Pods can't start? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just like, I understand. And look, I advocated for it when Pods was really struggling and they put Pat in there for a couple of games. But I mean, you say what you want. Pods is still a better player than LJ Cryer and Pat Spencer. He is. Oh, that was a mistake. Sorry. I accidentally clicked I just accidentally clicked my mouse. But like, we can't do that. We can't do this thing where it's like, you have all these guys out, but Pods can't start. Like, come up with a better option. And LJ Cryer's not a better option. And neither is Pat Spencer. Now, in a perfect world, when you have some dudes on your team that can soak up some of that time, I would agree with you. But I'm sorry, I'm not doing it for LJ Cryer and Melton, or Melton and Will Richard. Not doing it. Clem Ackers in the YouTube chat. The teardown needs to start now. Wow. Steph is not going anywhere, but any other moves need to be on the table. Otherwise, it's going to be the same old story. Getting younger should be the goal. Again, I think there's baby steps to that. And it starts with, they're not tearing it down around Steph. They're just not. Now, I think, can you bring in that third best player that can act as your second best player and let everybody slot down into a more manageable role while you wait for Jimmy? Or can you use Jimmy to try to get that guy, or do you use Draymond to go and get that guy? It's kind of the same conversation we have a lot here on Dubs OT and just Dubs, but I just don't see a teardown coming. I think we're a year away from that. I think we're one more year of this, and I don't mean literally what it's been for the last 2 months, although if you go into any season expecting, like, if the Warriors take the way this year has gone and they decide they're going to kind of run it back and try to keep everybody and wait for Jimmy, and like they can't do that. They're not stupid. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I don't see them doing that. But if they did that, you're begging to be in the exact same position where if the injuries are severe enough, you're completely cooked, as this team was 2 months ago, or if you get the normal amount of night-to-night injuries, the normal amount of, waiting for, just basically being obsessed with the injury report before every game when it comes out. If you wind up making that your mantra for this team, then I think you wind up at that point probably being in some semblance of a different version of the same conversation as where you were last year and where you were 2 years ago and where you were 3 years ago. And again, I'm with you. You can't have that. I do think getting younger should be the goal. I just don't think it's a tear down. I don't think it's hey, Steph's on the team, but we're developing a completely new team with Steph on the team. Oh, by the way, but Jimmy's still going to be on the team, and maybe Draymond too, but we're going to develop this completely new team that's going to be the team after Steph's gone. Like, that's just not how it works. Now, can you bring in a younger player that can be your third best player, maybe your second best player while Jimmy's out? That, to me, needs to be the goal. And I would not be afraid to give up picks and or any of the young players on this Warriors roster currently in an attempt to look to do that. I just would not. So I don't see a teardown. Billy Joe from Alamo, glad to have Dubs OT. Glad I took Dubs under 40.5 wins a few weeks ago. Yeah, they ain't getting to 41. I'll tell you that. I mean, I don't think they could even really get to 40. Although if you can be, I will say though, Billy Joe, don't get cocky, because if they beat Dallas, and everybody's kind of beating Dallas right now, but if they beat Dallas and Steph comes back, they might run off 3 in a row just like that. And all of a sudden your 33-38 might become 36-38. And then they still have a couple of games left against Sacramento. So, I mean, there is a pathway to 38 or so, but I still, where are you going to come up with the other 3? So you're probably okay on that front. But again, it depends on when Steph is going to come back. Thank you. Oh, put that one back up. I was going to read the rest of it there. And then lost it. All right, don't worry about it, Kyle. Don't worry about it. We'll keep it rolling. The vibes are so off. I don't even want to go to Chase. Sad. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I mean, this is like I said, this is a great timeout type of a roster. I mean, this is a Brian Winters is coaching the team with Gary St. Jean up on the box as the GM, type of a roster. This is a we got to fire Eric Musselman and hire Mike Montgomery to be the head coach. It's not pretty right now. It's definitely not pretty, but Steph's coming back, and they do have some winnable games here. So again, it's still probably going to end in the middle of April, but there can be, I think, and truly, I think the goal for the Warriors needs to be end this year, not with the belief that everything's going to be fine and you don't have work to do for next year, but end this year with some hope that Steph's still really freaking good and Porzingis can be a factor, and you want to keep Al and Melton, and like end the year knowing you still have to rework a good chunk of this roster for next year, but end the year, not spiraling the way that this thing has spiraled over the last couple of weeks. I do believe there's a value in that to kind of keep your culture together. End your year to where the last 3 weeks isn't just an extension of what the last 6 weeks has been. All right, one more, and we'll take a timeout. We'll get to our sounds at Dubs OT. Max Lopez, how do you fit a third best player under the cap, JD? You got to look to move Draymond. You got to look to move Jimmy potentially. Although to me, it's look to move Draymond. It's look to move Moody. It's look to move those picks. You got to do it. Like that, and nobody said it's going to be easy. But as you look at the Warriors roster and the Warriors salaries, and it is harder with the Kuminga deal done now. But it's Draymond and Moody, honestly, and maybe Pods. But it's Draymond 27.6, it's Moody 12.5. That's $40 million right there, 45 with Podziemski. Like, to me, that's the rework. That's the rework. It would have to be those guys if you're going to look to make a deal. But I've been saying that for weeks. Like, you can't believe you need to make significant changes and then be afraid to look to move something significant. But to me, that's what it is. And then you try to keep a bunch of the veteran guys that you like. And, you keep your Gees and you keep your Will Richards and you keep those guys as well. But maybe it forces you to have to move on from a Moody and a Podziemski. All right, let's take a timeout. 808 KMBR 415-808-5627. We'll come back. We'll get our sounds at Dubs OT. We'll look around the league a little bit as well. We'll do some fun with numbers. Warriors lose tonight, 126-110. Hawks beat the Dubs. We're here. We're talking about it. Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, back here, Dubs OT. Warriors lose 126-110. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Hawks win for the, 12th time in the last 13, I think 13th time in the last 15. Warriors lose again on this road trip where they are 1-4 with one game to go at Dallas on Monday night. Good news on the Steph reevaluation, but let's get to our sounds of Dubs OT here to get this thing rolling. All right, first and foremost, let's hear from Steve Kerr. This was pregame, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but here's Steve pregame giving the full update on what's ahead for Stephen Curry post reevaluation.
Yeah, he's going to play tomorrow morning here before we go to Dallas. So there'll be whatever players and coaches who are available will play. And Rick will evaluate him, and then that's the next step.
Is it 5 or 5 on 5?
I think 5 on 5. Okay. That's the plan. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I think we would like for it to be 5 on 5, but that's going to be determined by Rick. So, I'm not sure.
This seems like a major checkpoint. And, I mean, can you feel his return kind of loom into it?
I think tomorrow's probably the big day, and we'll know more at that point.
All right, so there you go. Stand by on Monday for Steve Kerr pregame in Dallas, right around 5 o'clock here on the West Coast. We'll get the details on what went down with this big Steph workout. And sometimes you don't have enough bodies to play 5 on 5, and you could tell. I mean, it's guys who haven't played or aren't playing a lot. The G League guys, the younger guys that haven't been logging a lot of minutes will get thrown into that. Coaches and other staffers can get thrown into that 5 on 5 just to have enough bodies to be able to get up and down. That's why I was kind of wondering, if you don't have enough bodies, maybe it's a 3 on 3, and then you get a 5 on 5 run on Tuesday when you're back home. And get a couple of more days going. But I think that's what's going to be interesting is how he comes out of tomorrow and whether or not, he feels good. And if he feels good, then do you need to do it one more time, maybe on Tuesday to clear him for Wednesday? Or do you want to still, have some caution as you head toward Wednesday and maybe head toward the weekend? But it looks like, good. Looks like good news and on the right track, and definitely Wednesday not off the table as it relates to Steph. All right, one more from Kerr pregame that I wanted to get to. He was asked by Anthony Slater of ESPN about Brandon Podziemski and the up and down nature always of Brandon Podziemski's play, but in particular the up and down nature of Podziemski's play on this trip for the Warriors. And here's what Steve Kerr had to say as far as the balance.
I think it's a great experience for Brandon. I mean, 20 games without Steph. I think where he is in his career, he's proven he can help drive winning. I think that's been apparent during is this his third year? Or?
Yeah, third.
Yeah. It's been apparent. He does a lot of things that can help drive winning. He is, in my mind, really exploring how good he can become and what type of player he wants to become. And I think you've seen lots of hiccups along the way where he's trying things that aren't working, but playing without Steph for 20 games is going to expose some of that. So in my mind right now, where he is if he's playing off Steph, off of the ball, if he's playing more of a secondary ball handler role, he's really good. He does a lot of things that other players don't do. He's got a knack. When he tries to be too on ball, you see him get into some trouble. You see the warts, and this is all part of being a young player. And then I think for him, he has to sort through all of that and the idea of what it means to be on a team and explore this stuff, explore your own game while also trying to help the team win. And that's a complex thing. And so this is a very interesting time for him, for sure.
All right, so pretty candid and honest Steve Kerr there in terms of, hey, he's at his best when he's the secondary ball handler, and an understanding that often I think goes undiscussed with relation to just the best areas to use him, but then also noting that when he's on the ball, maybe getting a little too much on ball, he isn't as good. And it creates problems. And, you come up with, as Kerr called them, hiccups in play. The one thing that's interesting, and we get into this frequently, is, Podziemski is in real time, I feel like right now, getting the opportunity to kind of work with Steph and Jimmy out through a lot of the balance between it. It is so similar to Kuminga, right? Like, he is getting the opportunity because of the state of where the Warriors are with both of their star players out, and him being somebody that the Warriors need in terms of the skill set, without Steph being a primary ball handler to ramp into that role as a primary ball handler. So he's getting opportunities to do things that he's not great at, but maybe thinks he is pretty good at, while also seeing long stretches of, mixed in where maybe he is the secondary handler and able to contribute in more ways toward winning when he is in that role. I think all of that relates to, and we play the cut because I do think it's an indicator that Kerr understands what's going on, as much as there's so many out there that believe that maybe Steve doesn't. And he's coddling him and he's giving him extra opportunities, and he doesn't understand the issues that Podziemski has, that we all see on a night in, night out basis. So that all said, though, I don't think we've seen enough in terms of the growth as it relates to Podziemski as a primary on ball lead guard guy who's going to have the ability to step up when others are out and potentially be a carrier. I don't see a future carrier. And I don't think anything that's going to happen here in the next 11 games is going to lead anyone to change their mind on that. And so, the Warriors are going to have to decide here in the offseason whether or not they can afford to continue to have Podziemski on the roster and playing as many minutes as he's playing, if they cannot have the majority of those minutes be when he's more in that complementary role. Like, he just has to be in the complementary role, extra ball handler, all of that to be at his most successful. Now, again, you're down so many players that he's forced into a role that he shouldn't be forced into right now. That isn't good for the team. That isn't good for him. You got to roll with it and wear it and own it, unfortunately, right now, and kind of take the L with it. But I think the one thing that we're seeing is what many people already knew, and it's the fact that he isn't going to be one of those guys that has the ability to ramp up, at least not on Steph's timeline. Maybe at some point later on in his career he can. I don't want to completely shut down the notion that he can't grow into that, but he ain't going to grow into it in the next 2 years. I think we've seen enough to know on that front. So I think the goal in terms of building the roster for next year is to make freaking sure that you do not leave Brandon Podziemski exposed in these ways that lead you to think that he's a much less effective player than he actually is when he is playing more off the ball or as a secondary ball handler that kind of gets it within the flow of the play. It's all about know your personnel and build the roster around it accordingly, because the last thing I want is to be having the same freaking conversation again next year where everybody kind of knows what Podziemski can't do while also acknowledging what he can do, but yet the Warriors have a roster that forces him to be somebody that he's not, and it just makes him the most frustrating and maddening player on the team, if not in the NBA. Like, it just don't do it again. It's the definition of insanity. Same thing over. So build the roster where he doesn't have to be the carrier. All right, that's my 2 cents on Brandon Podziemski here. All right, let's continue on. We'll get a couple of more. We are going to hear from Jonathan Kuminga as well from the Hawks locker room following his first game against his former team tonight as the Hawks dispatch of the Warriors 126 to 110. All right, let's hear from Steve Kerr on tonight and more big picture, just the existential nature of the frustrations that I think you could kind of see tonight that are building throughout this team as the losses continue to pile up here.
This is the hardest thing, to go through, losing and being decimated by injury and just feeling like, you're pushing, you're trying, you're playing hard, you're competing, but things aren't going your way. It's tough time. For sure, for everybody. It's human nature to kind of get down, hang your head, and I'm just trying to encourage the guys to keep competing, but to try to bring the energy and stay positive because reinforcements will come, and we have to be ready for that. But in the meantime, I'm proud of the way they're playing. They're playing hard, and but they're in a tough spot. We're all in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, Warriors definitely in a tough spot right now. And, I think the hope is, again, I don't want to completely repeat what I said earlier, but this is why you bring Steph back. Like if he's healthy enough to go. And this is why, frankly, Steph wants to come back, is because he wants to try to polish off some semblance of a positive spin on this season. Like these guys have been beating their head against the wall here for the last 21 games. And again, have remained competitive, but the longer, and we talked about it early, the longer you were going to have to go with this team, and then you start taking away from this team on top of it with Moody being out and Horford being out and the guys who can't play in back-to-backs and Porzingis is in and out. Like they've had a bunch of guys in and out. Quentin Post left the game with an ankle after starting and playing well. He didn't come back. Aggravating the ankle issue that he had that kept him out in the game last night. So, you have to navigate all of that. But part of the reason to get the reinforcements back is so this group that has grinded so hard doesn't have to just own it and wear it for another 11 games when they've already been doing it here for the last 21 or 22 and look like they're completely spent and at the bottom of their abilities to be able to compete. All right, one more from Steve Kerr, and then we'll hear from Jonathan Kuminga. Big night, landmark night for DeAnthony Melton in his return from the ACL as he plays in a back-to-back for the first time this season. And they were setting this up for a couple of weeks ago. It didn't quite work out, but now Melton gets an opportunity to play in the back-to-backs, and here's Steve Kerr on the importance of Melton being able to do that.
Yeah, it's meaningful. The hope is that he can continue to do this, and that when we do get, Steph and Moses and Al and Kristaps, we've got, the firepower that we need. Melt will really thrive because he's not going to have the best defender on him, which he's had the last couple of nights. So his health is everything. I'm so happy for him. I mean, guy missed 2 years with injuries, and he's in the prime of his career and such a great teammate, such a great guy to coach, and just thrilled for him that he's healthy and playing well and, back doing what he loves to do.
He's the guy that you want to keep around for next year. Like I know this team is old, and look, tonight and last night and a lot of these nights of late, it hasn't been, the Warriors are old and that's the problem. It's been the Warriors are playing with G Leaguers, and that's the problem. The Warriors are playing with 11 to 15 guys on their roster, and that's the problem. Like I have no problem, and obviously Melton is only 27, 28 in that range, but I have no issue with Melton coming back, Horford coming back, Porzingis coming back, and then, obviously Steph. But then you got to figure it out from there. And I think that's where you have to start to say, are we getting enough, if you're the Warriors, from the other young group to where they can hold it up if these guys are going to be out. And if they can't, those are the guys you change. Those are the guys you change out. And it doesn't mean you're going to get rid of all of them. But to me, it's you have to look at the guys who have the most value, and it's Podziemski and Moody and Draymond in terms of contract value plus your picks. That is those are the players that I would circle in terms of looking at. You talk about having the requisite firepower, and I think this team's in a unique situation if they make the choice that they're going to look to wait for Jimmy. I think that makes it all the more difficult, but I think it makes it all the more aggressive that the Warriors are going to have to be this offseason to look to add to this roster based on the guys that they want to keep. All right, a quick one for Kuminga. It was a rough night for Jonathan Kuminga against his former team as he ends up with the 2 points. He was 1 for 9 shooting in this one for the Hawks. Yeah, he ended up 4 rebounds for Jonathan Kuminga. He ended up, what was the overall line? 4 boards, 2 assists, a steal, a couple of turnovers in 22 minutes. And he winds up a -6 for the night. But here was Jonathan Kuminga after the game talking about going up against his former team and having the relationships that he does still with a lot of the players.
Well, I talk to most of them. I try. I try as much as I can, but I still got great friendship and connection. I feel like they're my brothers. I could call them at any time if I need something. They could call me anytime if I need something. So I think that shows a lot. Our relationship is very strong, and we brothers.
All right, and a lot of love, I will say, at least outwardly, shown for JK. And again, you'll never hear me say that guys didn't like Jonathan Kuminga on a personal level. I've never said it. I won't say it. I do think they liked him as a guy. I think they understood the basketball differences that were in play, not only between he and the head coach, but more importantly, just the entire system and he and the guys that needed to play, and his unwillingness to look to put his game in that box that could actually help the Warriors, and himself, help them win games and help himself play more than he ultimately did with Golden State. But all of that is bygones at this point as he moves on to Atlanta, and the Warriors continue to move on without him. All right, let's get some Kyle's clicks here. Wrap it up. We'll go about another 5 minutes here on the Sports Leader, and maybe some fun with numbers quickly. But Kyle, let's run through a few here. San Jose Jazz fan 8, Kerr would play Acuff at power forward, the guard from Arkansas. No, he would not. He would not. But yeah, he's an interesting player. He can score it, but I think he is vulnerable, certainly defensively. Drew Down from the 209. I'll trade 8 years of blah for 8 years of greatness that the Warriors have had. Well, where are we at in terms of blah? 4 years? 22, 23, 24, 25. I mean, 23 and 25 didn't end up with blah, but there was a lot of blah. Let me tell you, there was a lot of blah last season up until the Jimmy Butler trade. There was a lot of blah up until the beginning of February, end of January 2 years ago. There was a lot of blah up until the end of March 3 years ago. And obviously 4 years ago, they won a title. So this being the 4th year in 2026. All right, from Drew Down, we head to Scar Live. The vibes are off. I don't even want to go to Chase. We had that one a little bit earlier. So we'll keep it rolling. Hey, Beer Man, is Quinn Snyder being asked why he can't develop Kuminga? No. Not yet. Not yet. But let me tell you, he gave Kuminga a long run tonight, and they let him do some things tonight that he hadn't been doing in some of these other games where he had been more successful. And, some of it was he just wasn't hitting shots. But let me tell you, the Hawks are more talented than people think, and Kuminga can be less a part of – and tonight's a perfect example. They didn't even have their best player tonight, and they still had a bunch of guys who could do some things. But, no, Quinn Snyder's not being asked that yet. But I found it interesting. JK is rolling with the punches to a greater extent with Atlanta than he was certainly at the end of his time with the Warriors. but it had to burn JK a little bit, even coming off of the injury and not playing last night, that he didn't get the start when Jalen Johnson was out, especially against the former team. Probably the right call for Quinn Snyder. Ended up going with Mohamed Gay, and Mohamed Gay had a real good night. Plus 22, 16 points, 4-4 from 3, 10 boards. He had the night that you would dream of obviously Jonathan Kuminga being able to have. But yeah, not being asked that question as of yet. Hawk fans still thinking the Warriors. Yeah, a lot was made of that, Rockin'. It's funny. I saw some videos, like they were chanting Draymond sucks. I saw like on social media that crowd, the 404 crowd, I guess is what they call themselves. Again, I don't want to badmouth them because it's like it's fun and it's like, but it's like, it's the smallest. It looks like it's like 15 guys. There were. I think I played in middle school games that had bigger rooting sections than these guys out. So I don't know, like more power to them, but it ain't exactly like Atlanta, some basketball hotbed, especially when you move away from Magic City and have to actually focus on the games. But the only thing the Warriors are light years ahead of is the 11th seed from Pat H. It's a good one. All right, let's get to our last one here to wrap it up.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Kuminga only scored 2 points more than me and KP. Me too, and Kyle Haar. How about that? And Kyle Chung. And Anthony Garcia. And Jordo. No, yeah, it was not a great night for JK. All right, let's end it on that note as you listen to KMBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. No fun with numbers tonight because there was really nothing fun about the way this game ended up. We're going to end it on that note. Big thanks to everybody in the chat. Big thanks to everybody on the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line. Also on the phone lines as well at 808 KMBR and 415-808-5627. Kyle, final thoughts to you. It was just you tonight, man. You were running the show. You were cutting the sound. Anybody we need to thank tonight. First half minutes for Kyle Chung. Anybody.
Yeah, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Saw Raph earlier. Subbed in for Raph. He caught the first half. And Dan Dunn and Anthony Garcia and caught a glimpse of Jacob Violante roaming around. But yeah,
okay, nice.
Yeah, good group.
All right.
Good group today.
All good dudes, all working hard. Big thanks to everybody again. We'll talk to you on Monday. That's going to be a YouTube only, by the way, right about 9:00. That game's a late tip, 6:30. So we'll have Dubs OT for you Monday, YouTube only. Join me. I'll be with Greg Silver, 10 a.m. until 2 here on the Sports Leader as I continue to sit in for Greg Papa. And we got a busy week coming up with our Giants Roundtable, which I'm grateful to be a part of here on the Sports Leader. It's opening day. It's opening night. And I'm going to be with Greg on Monday. I'm going to be with Greg on Wednesday and joining the Roundtable as well on Wednesday from 58 Social. I'll be over at Harmonic on Wednesday and Friday nights. So we're packing a lot in here coming up. And then, of course, we'll still have the best Dubs coverage in the Bay. So we'll talk to you Monday right here, KMBR, the Sports Leader. John Dickinson.
No, God! No, God, please!